My name is Dr. Ola Brown. I'm an entrepreneur and an investor focused on fintech and healthcare. I co-founded my first fund in 2014 and my second in 2019, and I'm about to launch a third syndicate fund. I'm going to use the next few minutes to talk about the opportunity that early stage technology is presenting for emerging markets, particularly Africa. And I'm so excited about the future of early stage investing. Let me explain why. I'm excited about the evolution of the local ecosystem. I started investing in startups in 2014-15. One of our first investments was a company called Paystack, which we used our vehicle raised from local HNIs called Green Tree Investments to raise through. And at the time, Paystack was valued at in the range of $1 million, which we all thought was super expensive. Last year, this startup was acquired by Stripe, an American payments corporation, at a valuation of $200 million. And I'm excited because I think this is the first of many $200 million plus acquisitions. Each one of them will produce a flood of angel investors that deepen our ecosystem. Today, I've invested alongside the Flutterwave Mafia and the Andela Mafia and the Paystack Mafia and the Interswitch Mafia. Many of these employees or co-founders of these companies have become angel investors or even raised their own funds. This is our local tech community. This is our local capital. This is our on-the-ground local knowledge, fertilizing the ecosystem and enhancing growth. The second thing I'm excited about, which I've decided to make a standalone, is cryptocurrency. African countries are adopting cryptocurrency faster than their global counterparts. Recently, the Nigerian central bank launched the first central bank digital currency, the e-Naira. And this presents another opportunity for Africans to play what I think is a more prominent role in the global economy, as well as to challenge the dominance of Western currencies as the only tools of trade with their inherent advantages. I'm excited because decentralized finance forestalls a future where Africans have a more level playing field, a potential African renaissance, if you will, a fairer global financial system. And I'm excited about the equity assets that this fairer global financial system will produce and the demand for them. I'm also excited about the levels of capital and the volumes of capital that I see coming into our ecosystem. Venture capital fuels technology ecosystems. And in the first half of 2021, African startups raised $1.1 billion in funding. This is a figure that's higher than all the funding raised in 2019 and 2020 combined. And this kind of exponential growth excites me because of the way that Africans continue to build sophisticated software products, which continue to attract this capital. And as Europe and America remain in a low interest rate environments, I think that African tech will continue to be an attractive asset class because it enables them to get higher returns than they would in their home countries. I'm excited about women, but I'll give you the bad news first. Only 3% of funding went to all female funding teams compared to 78% of funding that went to all male teams. And the saddest thing about it is only 11% of the companies, of the over 2,000 companies used in that survey were all for female teams. So you can see that the actual number is a lot lower. So even though I've spoken about, the skyrocketing exponential growth that we're seeing on the continent, very little of that money has gone to women. Now, why are women important? Research from The Economist shows that countries that have low levels of women's empowerment are less stable and have higher levels of poverty. However, there is good news. When I first started investing in this ecosystem, I was one of the only women that I knew who was a GP in a venture firm. Now there are increasing numbers of women across the continent, both in angel investing networks and as GPs or LPs of funds. And there are actually several gender lens or female only funds. Affiliate Capital, for instance, invests exclusively in women, and they raised $100 million to invest and focus on investing in African women. This is exciting because I believe that the more women we have in this space as GPs, as LPs, and as members of angel investing networks, the more female-led startups and companies should get funded. So I've spoken about several things. I'm excited about the growth of our local ecosystem. I'm excited about the growth of cryptocurrency on the continent. I'm excited about women. I'm also excited about our markets from a macro perspective. Our stock markets and banks are becoming more sophisticated. Nigerian banks are growing and deepening their service offerings through holding companies. The Nigerian Stock Exchange has just gone through a massive corporate governance reform, as of many African stock exchanges. And this means that more companies will be able to access, to exit locally. And more liquidity means, or more opportunities for liquidity mean that more people will be willing to invest. So primarily, in times before now, the only opportunities that startups looked at were exiting on international stock exchanges. But from the corporate governance reforms that I see on our local stock exchanges, I'm seeing more and more signs that they will become viable exit opportunities as well. Finally, I'm excited by you. Everybody listening here in this conference is part of a growing community from across the world who have decided to invest in the future, the world's youngest continent, an extremely talented continent. And I see Africans playing such a massive role in value creation as we build this Web3 metaverse. And I'm sure that you do, that's why you're here. And I appreciate that. The real opportunity and what gets me up in the morning and what keeps me awake, sort of scribbling at my notebook at night, is a combination of all these things. The fact that Africa is home to 15% of the population, but only 5% of global foreign direct investment comes into Africa. But with only 5% of global FDI, decaying healthcare infrastructure, widespread poverty and inequality, the continent has shown a unique, somewhat surprising level of sophistication and resilience in the tech sector. Adoption of mobile money, developer and data science outsourcing, payments infrastructure, extremely sophisticated, the number of merger and acquisitions activity, and early crypto adoption all point to a seemingly innate advantage. I studied medicine at undergraduate level and economics, banking, and finance at master's level. Both disciplines, from an academic perspective, focus on the upsides that unfair advantages give people. So for example, in medicine, genetics, you can be genetically predisposed to having certain diseases like cancer and cardiovascular disease. And also in economics, the theory of comparative advantage, where certain countries can just do things better or more efficiently than others. There are negative issues and challenges in Africa: macroeconomics, the rule of law, policy issues, dictators, coups, terrorism. But I think that the mainstream media covers this extensively. And also, sometimes the coverage of Africa masks the incredible level of opportunity. I'm excited that technology seems to be Africa's comparative advantage. And as we dig into the discussions around macroeconomics and banking and angel investing and venture capital and policy and law and opportunity and profits, I really hope that we can focus on this comparative advantage that exists in Africa and how we can use capital as a leverage to create jobs, improve security, alleviate poverty, reduce inequality, and create a more prosperous world. Capital should exist to serve humanity, not the other way around. Thank you.